You know, the thing that Ajay bring, the importance of the heart, that which again in descent is not just in the head, because sometimes the awakening for many people, their head awakened. I mean literally true that there's a light bulb appears in the head. The head becomes clarity and light, and the one can see reality, can be awakened. They don't know yet their heart hasn't awakened. They don't know yet that their belly hasn't awakened. I know many realized individuals who live here. And I remember going to one famous non-dual teacher to talk about everything is oneness, everything, there's no individual, everything is just one. And I left there feeling like I was just a head. And my body was dangling. That was his condition. It was true he was experiencing that. He was from here, not from here. That because experience from here is a whole other thing. You feel the love, the compassion, the tenderness, the juiciness, the nectars of true nature. Because true nature is not just awareness. Awareness can flow as honey through the heart. And the honey can come through the fingers when you touch a friend. See, that is part of actualization. That's part of living. But that means both the conscious need to be clarified and the body need to be clarified. So the heart, that brings in the Gurdjieff ideas that a human is a three-brained being. The head, the heart, and the belly or the body. And they are all equally important, valid, and necessary. And the awakening need to happen in all of them.
They're very distinct ways awakening shows up. Right?
They're actually distinct. Like different tradition emphasize, like, the bhaktis.
Yeah.
Is all heart or all surrender, all melting, but they don't necessarily understand anything. Right. And they're the ones who are clear mind, emptiness, clarity, and transparency. The belly is a whole other thing. There's more, no bullshit.
Yeah. Right.
I am a mountain here, imperturbable, immovable mountain. That is more the awakening of the belly. We need all of those, and all of those requires a new realization, but also our humanity needs to both be clarified and matured so that our true nature, the pure awareness, present all these qualities. So that means all this what's called subtle physiology, the three brains or the three center, or some people call it chakra, all need to be activated and clarified from their occlusion around them, and need to evolve to become what they can be. And the process of evolution is endless.
There's a wonderful way that Dogen, because you mentioned him, talked about unity. Because as you said, you can, when you have that awakening on the level of mind, I call it, vast emptiness, you can experience a kind of seeing a kind of unity. But it's different than like when Dogen described his experience of unity. He called it an absolute intimacy with the 10,000 things. Because the unity up here is not necessarily intimate. It's like a fact. You see it, you know it. But when it's here, it's the experience of the intimacy, which is very, very different, right? It's something comes alive, and the experiential quality is like absolute closeness, and then of course, as you mentioned down here, as in Zen, we call this the mountain of emptiness. The great mountain, but and each part of these places have their own ways of hiding. There's the intellectual hiding with beliefs and opinions and just misunderstanding. There's the emotional shutting down that almost everybody knows that's ever gotten their feelings hurt or fell out of love, or all those kinds of ways that we can emotionally shut down, which makes it harder to open. And then of course down here is where all the fear, the ultimate fear of non-existence is. And I think a lot of people, it's like whenever someone talks to me with fear, if they sit and talk to me for a few minutes, 99% of the time their hand will eventually go right here. It doesn't go here. It doesn't go, oh, I'm experiencing so much. It always goes down here, the ultimate existence.
I just want one last remark. So I hear you speaking of like virtues of realization, just to make sure it's not something we're going to strive for now to open our hearts or to.
Is it not something?
It's not. It's you're speaking about flavors of realizations, right? It's not. It's not another process we're going to follow how to open our hearts or how to.
It depends on the person. I mean, if someone's sort of in emptiness and they've been there long enough, and yet they're really defended, then it's time to like go, no, okay, now we really have to shoot at opening that heart. We really need to focus on that. You know, because if you really clear up here, but your heart's not open, you know, as soon as you go into any place that has to do with emotion, whether it's your own or when you relate with other people and the whole emotional body gets going, it all falls apart. If that's the case, then you do really need to specifically...
But then maybe the realization to begin with maybe was not complete, if it didn't take care of itself.
Yeah, but if we start from a position that says that there may not be any such thing as 100% complete realization, do you know what I mean? And at least, you know, through our human experience of that realization, I have yet to meet anybody, and I've seen hundreds and hundreds of people awaken, and I've never seen anybody get the whole ball of wax all at the same moment and be able to function from it and, you know, and never be conflicted. I'm not saying it can't happen, but I'm saying I've never seen it.
But maybe it's not necessary. It's a construct that we have imposed.
I understand what you're saying. Okay, I get what you're saying. Yeah, you can look at this as like the idea is to become sort of Superman or Superwoman, super functional on every level of being. I think what we're talking about, certainly what I'm talking about, is not being superhuman at all. In fact, that's one of the things you got to climb off of that mountain of trying to be superhuman, which there's that in certain forms of spirituality too. Trying to develop into the perfectly integrated, balanced, you know, well, I'd like to meet that person. I've never met him yet. But having said that, this isn't about being a perfect person or being extraordinarily functional equally in every domain. It's like having a basic level of realization functioning throughout all the levels of your being. I'm not saying perfectly functioning, but I mean the heart is open and it's functional. The gut is open and it's functional.
Yeah, but including everything, the body,
the heart, all of it.
The mind, all of it, and that's, yeah.
There we go.
Okay. I said that the body, the heart, and the mind need to be all included in the realization. One thing you see, even the people who mentally realize, don't understand, is that the realization of development, when I say maturation, people think maturation of the mind means you're capable of clarity and emptiness. They don't think of it that, and they think of that as freedom from the thinking mind. But there is to actually live life, you need to think. So how can you be emptiness that thinks? That's not easy. You see, it's possible, and we could approximate it to various degrees, but to really live life, we need to move. Emptiness needs to move, need to love, interact, but also need to think, need to discriminate. And emptiness thinking is a whole other story. Doesn't mean there's no words, doesn't mean there's no concept. No, concepts are there, words are there, but you use them. And the presence itself uses the words and thinks through them, and the thoughts are luminous, become luminous. They don't disappear. At the beginning stages, thoughts disappear, you become quiet. The deeper stages, thought come back again as the expression of the clarity. So clarity bursts through the thoughts, and your thoughts penetrate reality, and you have greater insights about your life, what you need to do about other people. Not only that, as the mind begins to develop, you begin to know the mind of another. You can know the thoughts of another, or at least you know how to speak to them in a way that they can understand. Gurdjieff had the capacity, for instance, not many people develop it, that he can make the other know hear him speaking in their head. That's a capacity that develops with the mind. Super sort of capacity. Not everybody needs to do it, but we need to know that it is a continual process. It's not like we reach a perfection now, and that's why there's masters of so many kinds, because each has matured differently, matured certain part of their potential. They haven't actualized the totality of potential, because their potential is infinite. You need billions of years, and you're still not going to completely actualize it. But it's fun. It's life, right? You're living. You're truly living.
Yeah. And I think also to kind of come back to what you were asking about too, even if we have some ability to operate on all these levels of being, in a more or less clear way, we're all each going to have our own particular strong point, you might say. Some people are really going to be, that awakening level of mind is going to be their dharma. The heart thing, that's going to be their dharma. So it's not that everybody is supposed to have this completely balanced. That's an idea too. Our nature doesn't really operate that way. It's just to have it really functional and operational to a certain degree, I think, is, well, as my teacher used to say, which I really appreciated, and she had said, this is all just growing up. And she always likened it to a natural process. This isn't, what I'm talking about, I think what either one of us are talking, correct me if I'm not correct in this for you, is that we're not necessarily, in my experience, that everything I've talked about are things that I didn't have these as ideas to begin with. They just there's a way that things just unfold, like our life unfolds, like we grow up. And then there's a time when we move into different capacities, and that realization moves into a different place. And we don't need to necessarily be trying to have it as an ideal of being the perfect person. We just need to be honest enough and paying close enough attention just to watch when it starts to mature into the next domain of our experience. And then be willing to really put our attention there without any ideas of perfectionism, and then, because there is if you get too heavy-handed, if you try to lock yourself into a program, okay, I'm going to open this and this and this, and it's all going to look this way, then you are leading the way, rather than attuning yourself to a more natural kind of development. And to me, it's actually even though you need sometimes a lot of assistance and a lot of help, it's the process, it's natural. It wants to happen.
It's natural, yeah.
It's not something we have to make up and impose.
It's the nature of being to do that. But we need to learn not to lie to ourselves.
That's right.
We need to confront the difficulty. We need to confront our limitations. That there are natural limitations. There are things we don't know, we haven't developed, things we don't know about ourselves. We need to be willing. We need to be open, basically. And after a while, the openness, seeing the difficulty, seeing the limitation, is not a letdown. For a while, it feels like a letdown, feel like I failed. After a while, I said, no, it's an opportunity. There's a further realization that's possible here.
That's the next place.
Yeah, the next place could be life changer.
Yeah.
So every limitation, every difficulty becomes a portal, but we need to recognize the limitation, which means we need to be humble, completely humble.